and enjoy, guys. See you soon.
How's everyone doing? Oh man, there's a lot of kids in here today. Lots and lots of kids. They're going to have great fun doing their assault course and stuff outside. I might have to have a go at it later as well. Although I don't think I'm going to fit through the tunnel quite yet. So, a one-off message today called ReCharge. And the reason, if I'm honest, why I'm using this sort of topic to talk this morning is because about 10 days ago, we got up in the morning to do our normal school run. We've got like 400 kids, and so it takes us a long time, so we have to leave early. But we were running a little late that day, just a minute or two, and I don't like running late, even a minute or two. Some of you, like 5 minutes late is on time. I'm not that sort of person. I'm 5 minutes early. I feel comfortable now. I'm on time. But that morning, went to start the car, completely dead. Like, not even a noise, just completely dead. The battery was completely drained. And so, as you can imagine, that was fun with 4 kids trying to get them to school. And so, I borrowed some jump leads. I borrowed a car, take the kids to school, borrowed some jump leads from a friend, recharged the battery in the car, and it restarted. And if you know anything about cars, which I don't, the alternator will then charge that battery as you drive it or let it run over a period of time. And so the battery then gets recharged. And so it seemed as though my, let's call it a thesis, was that the kids left one of the lights on. Has that happened to anyone else? Like, one of the kids left one. We've got quite a big car, so there's like 17 lights in there. And I'm like, one of them's been left on for some reason, and they've drained the battery. Well, that's what I thought. And so I thought we were okay. But this week, I got a call. I was at the gym, squeezing a gym session in, and I got a phone call on my mobile from Steph, and she was at the school, which is sort of 5 miles away from our house, with the kids. She just dropped them off, and baby in a car seat, and she said, the car won't start again. And I was like, oh. I've only been here 15 minutes. And I was like, can't you wait? No, so I didn't. So I ran to my mum's house, borrowed her car, went up there, picked them up, and then spent the next half a day trying to sort it out with the RAC. And they come out, and they said, they just jump-started it. I tried with another car, wouldn't work. They jump-started it first time. I said, done all their diagnostics, and they couldn't find anything wrong with the battery or the alternator. And so I have no idea what was happening there. But he said, we don't know what's happening, but obviously there is a problem with the battery or the alternator that it's not picking up. Obviously, there's a fault there where it's not recharging, where the battery's not recharging as you drive the car. And so it got me thinking, like with our life, and my life particularly, but maybe yours as well, is that sometimes we fail to recharge properly. Sometimes we fail, and by the lack of response, I think I've hit that bang on the head. Yeah, it's probably quite true. Yeah, not even an eyebrow raise. Sometimes we fail to recharge properly. So I'm going to ask a question. Has anyone ever gone to bed, and you're quite tired, and you wake up in the morning more tired? It's weird. It's weird. It shouldn't happen. And you can imagine it like if, like us, you've got kids and you have to get up 3 or 4 times in the night, because one of them at a time comes down an hour apart to tell you they've had a bad dream or they're hungry or they've left the cooker on, whatever it is, and you're like, go to bed. But you can imagine you'd wake up tired. But when you haven't even woken up in the night and you wake up more tired, it doesn't seem fair. So I need to sign a petition for the government or something to get this sorted out. But it's like, I do this quite a lot, where my phone's like on 5%, and mine comes up and says, don't you think you should put me on charge? Because we're dumb, so we need reminding. It's like, on 15%, the screen gets tired, and it goes a bit dark. But at 5%, it starts flashing at you, saying, look, dummy, put me back on charge. And I've put it like, you've got 7% on your phone, you plug it in the wall, you go to bed, you get up in the morning, and it's on 5%. And if you're anything like me, busy life, I just forgot to turn the power on the wall. It happens all the time. I'd say every other day I do this. It is ridiculous. Or my wife's coming behind me, switching it off just for a laugh. But I want to talk about the importance of being recharged, because like our mobiles, like all of us need our mobile phones now. Like it's the end of the world if a battery goes dead. And sometimes when your phone hasn't charged overnight, you look at it and you go, this isn't going to get me through the day. And it's the same sometimes when you wake up in the morning more tired than you went to bed. It's like, I don't know how I'm going to get through the day. Maybe some of you feel like that on a regular basis. So I want to talk today about the importance of being recharged. And right off the bat, I am going to admit I'm not great at this. Anyone like me in my camp, or all of you lazy? No, it's cool. I'm not great at this. And I even rationalize and justify why I'm not good at it and setting time aside and doing it purposefully. It's because, I say, I just haven't got the time. I haven't got the time to do it, which is so dumb. Because at some point, like my car, I'm not going to function if I don't make time to recharge. And God knew this early doors, that some of us would be rubbish at this. And that's why God mandated in the Old Testament. If you read, the first half of the Bible, like Lord of the Rings 1, let's call it, like the first half of the Bible in the Old Testament, God mandated, he mandated, you will have a day off, one in a week. It says 6 days you should do your work. In Exodus, it says 6 days you'll do your work, and it's written lots of times. It's even a commandment. But on the seventh day, you shall rest. You shall rest from your work. And so that's Old Testament stuff. And God made it a command under the old law, I believe, because he knew the importance of rest. Even in the story of creation, it's like God created stuff for 6 days, and then he had a rest on the seventh. And I don't think it's because God needed a rest. He was just setting an example, because he's like, well, I know you do. I built you. I know what your batteries are like. You need to rest 1 in 7. And so in the Old Testament, he mandated it for his people, probably because he knew that there'd be pushback, probably because he knew there'd be people like me who were like, hey, we're all right, I'll fit it in, next month. And so he mandated it because he knew how important it was for us as humans. And it's weird, and if you're like me, you push it down the road, you kick the can further down the street. Oh, I'll recharge, I'll rest later, or I'll do that at some other point. But when my car battery died, or was dying, or it sounded like it's going to die, you don't justify not charging it, do you? You don't go, you tell it, it's dead, I won't charge it because we're going on holiday tomorrow. The car with all the stuff. I need to wash the car for some reason before going on holiday. I need to check the oil, check the tires. I need to do all these other things that are about the function of the car, and I'm going to justify not charging the battery. And any one of us who made that decision is not intelligent. We'd all say you're dumb, because you're not going to get anywhere if you don't charge the thing that actually starts the engine for you to actually go. And so we understand how ridiculously ludicrous it is for us to do that with any piece of machinery or our phone or your iPad or your laptop, whatever it is. You understand, if I'm going to use this and it's going to function as it's supposed to function, I need to recharge it when it needs recharging. And yet, for some reason, with our own body, our biological body, which is far more complex in its charging systems, we think, we'll get to that at some other point. Or we think, I'll go to sleep, and that will be enough. And yet God, when he spoke to his people and mandated in the Old Testament, didn't say, sleep every night. He's like, I've already built that in. You try not to do that. It happens by itself. It's like you have to purposely make yourself rest and recharge in a particular way, I think, even for you, and we're coming to that today. It's the same with our life. Without recharging, sooner or later, you will be completely drained and useless. Hebrews 4, 9 to 11, if you think, well, that's Old Testament, we don't have to follow the Old Testament law anymore. And that's true, but Hebrews 4, 9 to 11 says this. It says, there remains then a Sabbath rest, because that's what it was called, the Sabbath, a Sabbath rest for the people of God. There remains, even though in the Old Testament we don't have to tick all the boxes and follow all the exact commands of every single thing because Jesus come and fulfilled the law, it says there still remains a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters God's rest also rests from their works, just as God did from his. Let us therefore, check this, and I love the reality of the language here, make every effort to enter that rest so that no one will perish by following their example of disobedience. And it's talking about in the Old Testament how people didn't follow that mandated rest. And it's not mandated for us on the Sabbath. Some of you might still have that old mentality and think Sunday's the day of rest. Well, actually, it was Saturday, so you're wrong already. But there is this thing that remains, this Sabbath rest that we should make every effort to enter into, says the writer of Hebrews. And it's because fundamentally as humans, we haven't changed. And I don't mean we haven't changed when we accept Christ into our life. I don't mean that. I mean biologically, we haven't changed. Psychologically, we haven't changed from people of the Old Testament. And the fact still remains that we need to recharge. We need to recharge. You need to recharge. I need to recharge. We all need rest. And that looks, I think, different for every single person. It does. It looks different. What rest is. Because remember, God mandated, and he said, rest from work. And the writer of Hebrews says, rest from your works or their works. And so, because our works are all different, our rest will probably look different as well. You need to rest from your work, whatever your work is. You know, if you're a physical laborer, you know, I've done that job in the past. I've had 20 different jobs growing up as I went through university. I was a labourer for a plasterer, so mixing up cement, mixing up plaster. It was knackering, carrying up 2 buckets of plaster that must have been like 35 kilos each in each hand, going up a ladder that was just rested against it. I don't think you get away with it these days. Like going up a ladder that had no handrails and with a bucket in each hand. I'd get home and I was knackered. And what rest was for me is moving as little as possible. Because my work was physical. As a PE teacher back in the day, I would move constantly all day long for 8 hours playing sport, teaching sport. And so at the end of the day, I had to move as little as possible, or at least at the weekend have some time where I would move very little, because that was my work. And so rest for that sort of person, and most of the people in the Old Testament, in fact, would have been just stop moving quite as much. Let your body recover. But I want to say, if your work is staring at a screen all day for 8 hours, you going home and sitting in a slightly different position, watching a bigger screen with different things on it, might not be rest. And some of you are like, yeah, but I like watching Netflix. I like that series. That's cool, and it might be restful for some of you, and that's cool, but maybe it's not what your brain and body need. Maybe your rest is, do I say it? Yeah, going to the gym. Or you can throw some shoes at me, I can dodge them. and I mean that sincerely, that your work is like brain stuff, and it might be that you actually have to work your body to rest that side of you. I'm not going to build a theology on this at all, but what I'm saying is each of us have to rest differently, and maybe you have to carve out a way in your life to know what actually brings you rest, that where you can enter a Sabbath rest, like the writer of Hebrews would say. And so there are all sorts of things that we might do to rest, and they're all independent to us, but I want to ask you as an individual, what recharges you? What recharges you? Not what recharges your partner or somebody else or the leader of a church who tells you should be doing this and this should recharge you. I don't mean that. I mean that you can self-identify this thing, when I do this thing or don't do this thing, it actually recharges me, because it will look different for everyone. And I want you to think not just in one dimension, but really in every element of your being, with your body. What brings your body rest? What brings your soul rest? Your emotional, psychological part of you, because that might be very different than what brings your body rest. And what brings your spirit rest? What body? What recharges your soul? What recharges your spirit? And I want you to think about them terms while we're talking about this today, because like most of us, we know the first one we have to do is sleep. Sleep is it's sort of like a trickle charge. We've got a few people who might have electric cars in, and you can put it on overnight, and it takes ages, the whole night to trickle charge because you've got some little plug, you can't afford the big supercharger thing. And sleep can be like that to all of us. It trickle charges. We spend a third of our life in bed. Honestly, I was thinking about it. I think about this a lot. And Steph will tell you, every now and again, every 6 months, I say to her, we'll be in the kitchen, I'll be chopping carrots or something. That's how I chop carrots. No hands. Gordon Ramsay. And I'll just say, isn't sleep weird? Honestly, every 6 months, isn't sleep weird? A third of your life, you're unconscious. You know, I've had a chat with God sometimes. I'm like, why couldn't you make it like the rapid charging like Tesla? You should have got him involved in the design of this sleep thing. Because like 2 hours, bang, recharged, 80% at least, then you can go on with your day. So much more efficient. And I could just, you know, in my spirit, God's like, yeah, I tell you what, you carry on chopping the carrots. I'll sort out biology, all right, if that's okay with you. And so it's like a trickle charge. And I want to say, you know, if you don't sleep well, like some of you might over-spiritualize this side of things, but if you don't sleep well, I want to encourage you, work out how to sleep well. Work out how to rest, because it's so entwined with every other part of our being. Work out how to rest. Do everything you can to resolve it. But other than sleep, let's just put that on the shelf just for 1 minute. We also do activities or things that are more like a rapid charge, like a Tesla rapid charge, where you can get 80% or be energized in a short space of time from doing something. Whether it's for your body, you know, me going to the gym, I have to go to the gym every day or I feel like rubbish and have no energy. I have to exercise, or even if it's just go for a walk or run up Castle Hill. Doing physical activity actually brings me rest in a weird way. It recharges me in a weird sort of way. And so we can do activities that rapid charge us, if you like, that we. For me, it's exercise. I have to do it. For most of us as well, food's probably another one. Probably more so for some than others. Because some of us just think about that as a physical thing. You know, we've got friends in the church, and they're like, I don't really like food. I just eat to stay alive. I don't understand them people. You know, and there are others in here where food and that the whole part of food and family and everything is part of culture, and it brings a richness and recharges. Even the taste of food can make you come alive and sends dopamine all through your brain and recharges you, and that can be dangerous as well, but also can be beneficial. But for me, food is like that as well. Listening to music is a big thing for me. Even when I'm preparing my message, I have music on in the background constantly. When I go running, I have music on in the background. It recharges me. And in the shower, I have a little speaker that I put on so loud, far more louder than it needs to be. And so I have it on really loud. It recharges me. It really does. Listening to other preachers and teachers, I do a lot of that, and it recharges me. It's something that I have to do. Podcast, and my other thing, I suppose, my non-spiritual side, is like movies. I love movies. I think it's because I can sort of switch off from reality. I can just rest and spoil the plot for everybody else who's watching it, because I like to guess what happens in the end. Even if I'm wrong, I'll give you 7 different options of what could happen. But I love that. Even though my brain's working, it's resting from my work. It's resting from my work, even though it's doing. And many of us think resting is just doing nothing, and it can be. Resting can be doing nothing. But often for many of us, resting isn't doing nothing. And a big example for that is me with like holidays. Like when I first met Steph, we've been married nearly 18 years now. Holidays, I'm like, they're a waste of money because you have to stop working. I'm like, it's so inefficient. I don't want to do that. I didn't feel like I needed it. And maybe at the time I didn't need holidays in the form that I used to take them. But now more and more as I get older, I'm like, when's the holiday? And Steph's like, we come back last week. You know, the phrase is, isn't it, when you come back from holiday, how did it go? Oh, I need another holiday. Yeah. It's like a phrase that, maybe it's a British phrase, I don't know. But holidays for me, like a thing about a holiday for me that recharges me is activities. It's not doing nothing. I have to go and do stuff. And if I'm not doing stuff, I feel like, honestly, it doesn't matter where I am. I could be on a sunny beach. If I'm just sat there, it drains me. It drains me more than working. It's really weird. For some of you, the same. So I have to go and do activities. I have to do something. I have to have something fun to do. Actually, it doesn't have to be fun to do. Like when we went to Florida, I just go to Walmart. Honestly. Because like, for you Americans, you might think, oh, Walmart, horrible place to go. For us, it's like Disneyland. They sell everything. They've got flipping trampolines. They've got nuclear weapons. It's like, look at all this. You don't have to buy anything. It's like a day out with the kids. Honestly, it'd be like, kids, should we go to Walmart? Yay! And then it'd be like, can we go to Target? And you're like, Target? Just going to have a look around. It's like a zoo. And I don't mean the Americans there. I didn't mean that. No, I didn't. Just, I know that could sound wrong and I'll get an email. Actually, it's more like the British people on holiday who are all pink from being sunburned. They're the ones to watch. And so I love doing that. That recharges me. What recharges you might not recharge me. My mother-in-law, when she goes on holiday, what she does is sit in the sun and cooks. She loves cooking. No, not cooking. I mean, she just sits in the sun and cooks. I'm sure she puts like olive oil on. You know, the crispier the better. She thinks she's a chip. And she does. That is her recharge, is nothing. Need to do nothing. And that's cool if you're wired that way. I'm not. But sitting doing nothing would drain the life out of me. So what recharges you? What recharges you? Because what recharges you might discharge someone else. What gives you energy and recharges you might actually discharge someone else. It's like they're giving out energy. You know, I know people, for me, if we go to a social function with friends or a party or out for dinner or whatever, that re-energizes me. It does. I love spending time with people, but I know other people are more introvert, more one-on-one type of people. They go in a group of 8 people, going out somewhere drains the life out of them. And we can't understand each other, perhaps. It's like, well, just, you need to go out more. Yeah, drain me slowly. But for you, it could be anything. It could be pets. It could be gaming, arts, crafts, cooking, volunteering, whatever. All of these normal things that we can find rest from, resting from your work. And like I said, it could be doing nothing. It's funny, I just had a conversation with Kaylee. She said, I had a week off work. It's lovely. I've done nothing for the whole week. And I'm like, that sounds like hell. But for many of you, resting and recharging can be in doing. It can be doing activities. And many of you know this, even like serving in church, coming to church on a Sunday. You might not feel like you're doing anything, but you are actually active. You're doing something as opposed to just sitting there. Maybe in connect groups, maybe in individual prayer time, in worship, maybe just being still. There's loads and loads of things where we can recharge. It's not all about doing nothing, even though that might be a big part of your equation. It's not just about doing nothing. The Apostle Paul talked about other people refreshing him. He wrote it so many times in his letters to different people. For they refreshed my spirit as well as yours. He would say, like, I'd go to them and they'd refresh my soul. They'd make me feel better. They'd bring energy to me. They'd restore me in some sort of way. Spending time with friends in Christ for Paul was like, that's something that recharges me, that brings me. And it can recharge us too. So I want to ask you a question. Can I know I can be more purposeful and set aside time to be recharged? Because just like the car, if you don't, at some point, you're going to not function properly. Can you set aside more purposeful time to be recharged? So let's flick the coin to the other side and ask the simple question of, so what drains you? Oh, you've got a list of these ones. What drains you? Because there's a thing about, you know, we need recharging, but we also have to understand what drains energy from our life too. If we're going to get this balance right, or to be the most efficient we can, if we're going to be a Tesla, we need to understand what drains us. You know, aircon off, lights off, not when it's dark, that's dangerous. But like, what drains you? And I'm going to be really honest, and I don't care how much you hate me. Can I be honest? Being a parent of 4 drains the life out of me. And the people who've got many kids in the room had a little chuckle. The ones who've got 1 or 2 or none went, how dare you? But being a parent of 4 drains the life out of me. And I want to be clear, but it brings me a lot of joy. It brings me a lot of joy, and it sort of charges as well. You know, and you've got these really clever cars that whilst they're driving, expelling energy, also use the braking system to recharge themselves. And so it can be with some things in our life that really do drain us, that actually bring us bits of energy as well, that sustain us, that give us rest in different ways as well. Because it's a very different thing taking 4 on the school run when it's raining than it is cuddling up having a movie. Can I tell you, it's very different dynamics of charging. The alternator's flicked. It's gone from sucking out energy to refilling. But I know as a parent, it's a necessity. I'm not moaning about that being a drain. It's a reality. It drains me. And so there's a necessity there. It's what my job is. It's my purpose. And that's okay. If I'm being super honest, building church drains the life out of me. It drains the life out of me and Steph. It makes us, sometimes I finish up, not just on a Sunday, but generally any event we do or anything, I'm like, take me, Lord. Sometimes I can feel like that because it drains me. It drains the life out of me. Yet it brings joy and is part of purpose. And so that's why we have to be very careful about when we think about these sort of things, because some things are necessary. Some things are a necessary drain on your battery. I want you to think about this. What's the point in a battery? It's to be drained. It's to have power sucked from it for a particular function and purpose. That's why we have one in the car. We don't have it ready, stored up, nice and 100% full to do nothing. It has a purpose to start the car, to make the lights. It has to be drained all the time for its function, for its purpose. So do you. It's okay you're knackered because you're designed to be drained. You should be drained. I don't mean 100% all the time, not being able to restart, but you should be being drained. Just like a battery, you are designed to be drained. So a better question maybe, and this is what I really want to focus on right now, is what drains you unnecessarily? That's a better question. What drains you unnecessarily? What sucks the life out of you that is unnecessary, that you don't need in your world, that takes stuff from you? Because our charge is precious. We know that just in our mobile phone. We know that charge is precious. Sometimes it gets near the end. We close down the brightness on the screen, all that sort of stuff. Close down some apps to try and keep some energy that we don't need, that we're wasting. Our charge is precious, so we want to avoid being drained by the things that have no business draining us. Things like, I think Jesus would say, like worry. What a stupid, that's like having aircon on in the car with the windows down in summer. What's the point? You're just draining energy for no benefit. I think Jesus would say that sort of thing about worry or fear, saying you don't need to do them things. You're draining yourself. You're actually allowing draining of energy that you do not need to do, that you're going to need to recharge in some form or fashion. And often you'll look to the wrong things to recharge that. Excuse me. Maybe it's just being inefficient. I'm all about that. Honestly, I'm like, what's the least amount of energy I can expend in doing this task? If I'm painting a house, I'm like, what's the most efficient way of doing it where I have to do the least amount of work? It's not through laziness. It's because I'm so busy, I need to be efficient. Maybe there's things in your life where you're inefficient, you're wasting time on things that doesn't bring any value, has no purpose, and only drains. You're wasting time, perhaps. Maybe there are some things or activities or even people that drain you, that have no purpose, that God's like, why are you messing with that? Because that's just sucking out of your life, and you perhaps need to disconnect from. Just like a battery, when it's connected to something else, will get drained along that until you take off the crocodile clip. Perhaps there's things in our world that we need to make that decision with. You see, when Jesus sent his disciples out to tell about the kingdom of heaven, he sent them in twos and basically said, I'm not giving you anything, just go and it will be provided for you. Just go, tell about the kingdom of heaven. And so they went out and he said this, if anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, check this, he says, leave that home or town and shake the dust from your feet. He's like, if you're doing something and there's literally no purpose or value in it, they're not listening, they're rejecting, he said, just shake the dust from your feet and walk off. That isn't Jesus saying, don't care about people. It's saying you can get sucked all of the energy out of you trying to do something that has no purpose at all because nothing's going to change. And so they made that call. You know, I'm gonna do stuff. If there seems to be no fruit from it, I'm going to shake the dust from my feet, clean off my sandals, go to the next house, go to the next town. I'm not going to, the disciples probably understood, I'm not going to stay here and be fully discharged like my battery in my car, having everything sucked out of it. Well, I can't function at all. They understood, I'm not going to stay in an environment that will just suck the life out of me because it's pointless. There's a great example in Scripture as well of, I think, where the disciples were expending energy. And they were I've read it the other week. They were in a boat with Jesus in the boat, and a big storm come up, and they were terrified, and they were just, he's going to help us now. And they woke Jesus up. Jesus was asleep. Jesus, the dude, was like, this is my time to recharge. I'm resting. Jesus done it a lot. He took himself off a lot. But even in a boat of loads of people, he said, I'm having a kip. We're going on this journey. Make the use of the time. I'm having a rest. And they're freaking out and scared and giving energy out into worry and fear. And Jesus wakes up and said, oh, you of little faith. It's like you're just wasting energy and resource and time on this thing that is not a problem. I can really relate to that. You have little faith. We so often let circumstance drain us when we should be charging. You know, we know the things that might recharge us and bring us rest, and maybe we let circumstance and get caught up in all sorts of things that drain us at the very time we should be recharging. Just like the disciples, they should have been resting in the boat with Jesus. Because I don't know about you, I want to only use my battery only on the things that matter. So you have charge left when it matters. You see, when the disciples returned from mission trips, they'd report back to Jesus, and Jesus gave them this advice, and bless them, they'd been going around doing all sorts of stuff. They were knackered, and they come back, and let's read it in Mark 6, verse 30, please. It says this: the apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught. It says this: then because so many people were coming and going, they didn't even have a chance to eat. Who's been there before? You've been so busy, you haven't even had a chance to eat, and you're in a great mood then, aren't you? You're in a great mood, because some of you, like, I've got friends who plan their meals out. They don't know when their next meal's coming. They're really freaky about it. And they're not even people who like, I need food. They're not big old fatties or anything. They're nothing like that. They're just that way minded. I need to know when my next meal is. So they would have been a right pain at this point. It's been so busy that they didn't even have a chance to eat. He said to them, come with me. Jesus said this: come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest, because they were in a bustly place with lots of people without Jesus. And he said the remedy for that is to come by yourselves, just the disciples, to a quiet place with him and get some rest. It says this: so they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. And I reckon the disciples, because earlier on Jesus was skipping in a boat, I reckon the disciples thought, right, kip time. If it's windy, let's make sure we're all asleep, even if we have to pretend. So Jesus doesn't give us a hard time. But it says this: but, a lot of scripture says but many who saw them leaving recognized them and ran on foot ran on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. Imagine that as a disciple. Right, Jesus, he's given us a few hours off, given us the rest of the day off, going to chill. We can go in the boat with him. I have a little bit of a kip, then we go nice somewhere quiet, have a nice quiet meal. But people saw them and run ahead of them. Imagine that. You'd just be like, no. And it says they ran ahead of them. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, so Jesus pulled the boat up to the side and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them. So immediately, the disciples have had, we don't know how long, maybe a few hours in the boat, just chilling, resting, trying to get some sleep. And they land, and straight away, Jesus is like, immediately I see something I need to address. He saw needy people. He had compassion on them, it says this, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. And the disciples must have been like, we've just been doing this. You should have a rest. It says this: by this time, it was late in the day. I love this. And it says this: so his disciples came to him and said, this is a remote place, Jesus. He said, this is a remote place. It was a remote place before all these people started coming. But this is a remote place, they said. And it's already very late, isn't it? Remember you said to rest? It's already very late. And they said, send the people away so that they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat. Oh, and the disciples being so compassionate for these people. Oh, you send them away so they can go, because they look hungry, Lord. You know, you can read between the lines just as much as me. The disciples are going, we're knackered. We've had like half an hour kip in the boat, and Peter was being noisy and snoring. I couldn't get any kip. You've just landed and invited all these people in. Can you send them away to go and get fish and chips by themselves so we can rest, please? You understand that that's what the disciples are saying here. Maybe that's just me. You interpret it yourself. But it says this: but he answered, you give them something to eat. Oh, imagine that. Jesus, you told me to rest, Jesus, and I'm giving you the problem. I'm not expecting me to be the solution to that problem. I'm telling you I'm knackered and need rest. But he says, you give them something to eat. Even though you're tired, even though you've been doing this, you should have recharged in the boat. You should have had a quick power nap. You should have drawn from me, perhaps, in that quiet time. He says, you give them something to eat. They said to him, that would take more than half a year's wages. Are we going to spend that much on bread and give it to them to eat? How many loaves do you have, he asked. He said to them, go and see. Oh, I've got to get up again. You know when you've been that tired, where everything's a pain, the doorbell goes, and you're like, why me, Lord? You know, they're that tired. He said, go and see. When they found out, they said, five loaves and 2 fish. Then Jesus directed them to have all people sit down. So they then had to do crowd management. Go and get them to sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. We know this story if you've been in church any length of time. Excuse me. It says this, then he gave them to his disciples to distribute. Or verse 41, taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples to distribute. So they're now like Go Eat or whatever it's called. They're now a food distribution service as well. Go and distribute it to the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them all. They all ate and were satisfied. And then, check this, and the disciples picked up, they're like, oh, now we're a cleanup crew as well. It feels like this in church culture sometimes. I'm on every single crew, doing every single thing. It says, and the disciples picked up 12 baskets of broken pieces and bread and fish. The number of the men who had eaten was 5,000. So just the men that were counted were 5,000, let alone the women and children. And some of you might be thinking, Jesus, you sound a bit out of order. He said we're going to get some rest. But Jesus had told them to rest. He said, come with me for a little while by yourselves in a quiet place. Jesus perhaps knowing and thinking, in the boat, that's all you're getting. Because Jesus knows everything. You're having this time to recharge. He needed them quickly to recharge, not wasting energy on anything. I can imagine that's why he told them to shake the dust from their feet when people weren't responsive. He's saying, don't waste any energy on stuff that isn't helpful for building the kingdom. And once again, after this, you think, well, then did Jesus give them rest? No, he said, back right on verse 45, it says, immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him while he dismissed the crowd. So you can imagine they just sent him away lovely, thinking, right, now we get to rest again. And he said, nope, we're still going. Immediately Jesus made his disciples get in the boat, immediately. And check this, he sent them across a lake where there was then strong winds all night that were blowing in the opposite direction. And it says that Jesus saw them from the hillside, rowing and paddling against the wind all night. So they're already knackered and they're made to go against the wind all night. And it says this, that Jesus then walked past them. You know the story of Jesus walking on the water. They've been battling all night and he just comes skipping along the surface of the water. All right, boys? Because he'd had a rest on the mountain, one-to-one, praying with God the Father. And it says this in verse 54. It says this, as soon as they got out of the boat, so they just landed, people recognized Jesus. Oh, I don't know about you. I think some of us would have been like, you know what? This discipleship stuff isn't for me. And Jesus would have been like, I did tell you there was a cost. You're going to have to pay it. Verse 55 says, they ran throughout the whole region and carried the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into the villages, towns, or countryside, they placed the sick in the marketplaces. They begged him to let them touch him, even the edge of his cloak, and all who were touched were healed. So there was massive purpose in kingdom building of what was going on here. And Jesus understood, and I want us to get this principle, that just because we're tired sometimes doesn't mean that the kingdom and God doesn't need us to expel energy and be drained almost to the point of being 0%. It will happen at times in building church. You know, that is why it's so important to understand what recharges us and what drains us that has no purpose, and cutting all the fat off and saying that has no purpose in our life because it doesn't bring us anything to build his kingdom. And that's not to say you can't have leisure time. I'm embracing leisure time and saying actually be purposeful in them things to recharge for yourself, but for others, and we'll come on to that. Because the poor disciples, they were knackered. What's my point? I think my point is we should endeavor to be ready to replenish others around us. We should make sure we are ready to replenish other people around us, and that means us making sure we are recharged. It's meaning when Jesus gives us the nudge of saying you need to rest. Jesus knew what was coming. Rest up. because we got something bigger happening. We know as a church, we took a time of rest at the end of this year because we know what's going to be happening next year. We shouldn't wait until we are absolutely depleted of energy, physically, emotionally, or spiritually, before we collapse to then rest. Because perhaps it's at that point that you're going to be needed. Whether with your family, with your neighbor, in your church, in your community, in your workplace, whatever, where God's like, that's the opportunity I want you ready for, and you're completely depleted because of wasting time on things that you have no business in, or not making time to be recharged. I think God wants us charged. I think God wants to use our charge. Just like I'm a parent, part of my purpose is to drain charge in bringing up children. I think God, in his way, wants us to use our charge to build his kingdom. But in doing so, we must continually recharge. It's no good, especially if you're like me, of just draining to the point of collapse. And we do that, by sleeping and eating and by resting and having fun and doing all those other things, which I do want to suggest we do, to recharge your body and your soul, but we also need our spirit recharged. We need our spirit recharged, and only he can do that. He said to the disciples, he didn't say go and rest, he said come with me. Come and be with me. Come and be around me, and that's what you'll get rest from. Jeremiah 31:25 says, for I will satisfy the weary soul. It says, in every languishing soul I will replenish. Isaiah 40:31 says this, but they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. There's a great song about this that I hope to do in the future, but it says this, they shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. Oh, that's nice. They shall walk and not faint. Matthew 11:28 says this as well. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden or heavy burden, and I will give you rest. And so we can do all them other things, and I want to encourage doing them other things that you know bring you recharge, that bring you rest. But don't forget that also we need to keep Jesus at the center of them things, because only him really and being alone with him can do that for our spirit. And if we're going to run full charge into everything God wants for us, we need to be fully charged. If you're going to run full charge into everything God's got for you, you need to be fully charged. We need to be replenished so we can replenish others. We need to be restored so we can restore others. We need to be refilled so we can refill others. Or we must be fully charged so we can recharge others. And so, in your life, your body, your soul, emotionally, psychologically, in your spirit, I want you to ask yourself, am I prioritizing time to be recharged? Am I purposeful with it? Am I doing that? And if not, I implore you to follow Jesus' invitation with his words that say, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. Come with me by yourself to a quiet place and get some rest. Whatever that looks like for you, I want to say, please do so. Just so you're in a position that you can recharge others. Yes, it's for your sake, but I believe Jesus would say it's beyond us. It's for other people. So let's make sure we are recharged so we're in a position to recharge others. Amen. Amen. Let's pray. Father, I just thank you for this